Chapeau sur le côté, monsieur Banjo, badine à la main. Mouchoir dans son pêche, monsieur Banjo, cigare dans son gros la bouche.
Welcome everybody to the Social and Political History of American Music. I want to introduce Kevin Comtois, who has been teaching history and government at Northern Essex Community College since 1999. He's also taught at Merrimack College, Quincy College, and various secondary schools. And most recently, he started teaching at Notre Dame Academy in Tyngsboro. Kevin has designed a course of history of American music while serving as the Social Studies Department chairman. He earned his BA from American Civilization from Westfield State College and his MA from University of Massachusetts, Boston. Kevin is the recipient of 2 national endowments for the humanities, one in 2005 to study the history of jazz at Washington University in St. Louis, and the second to study the Industrial Revolution in Lowell. In 2011, Kevin taught an honors course he designed at Northern Essex Community College titled The Social and Political History of American Music, and continues to be a member of NECC Speakers Bureau. In 2014, Kevin published his first book entitled Troubadours and Troublemakers, The Evolution of American Protest Music. Kevin is active in local politics since 1990, serving as chairman of the Tewksbury Board of Libraries Trust, and in early 2000, and continued on as an amateur musician and writer. Kevin and Maxine live in Methuen, Massachusetts. Again, thank you for coming and doing this.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I have to thank BATV for having me here. Thank the town of Billerica, and of course, thank to Jim Woodside for putting this whole thing together. What I've done is I've taken my entire course and shrunk it down into 90 minutes. No tests, no quizzes, okay, I promise. But over the next 90 minutes, what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you the diversity of American music and how eclectic American music is. And over the next 90 minutes, we'll be reviewing that music and taking a look at the social and political context of those songs. Now, if we're going to talk about American music, we have to understand that it is extremely dynamic, that it is extremely diverse, probably more diverse than any other musical culture in the world. And music reflects a nation's history. Our music reflects our history. It reflects the good in our history, and it reflects the bad in our history. It also shows the evolution of us as a nation, and it really gives you an idea about our culture. And in order to understand American musical culture, we have to understand the legacy of the African American in the United States. And over the next 90 minutes, what I would like to do is show you the importance of the drum and the banjo in American musical culture, the double entendre in American musical culture, the use of expressiveness in American musical culture. And it's important to understand that each time period in American history has created different music. For example, slavery gave us spirituals. Segregation gave us blues and jazz. Discrimination and Jim Crow laws gave us rock and roll, and urban decay and police brutality gave us hip hop. So every element of American culture and American history has actually given us different parts of our music. And American music is also a competition and a complement to each other. We're going to see this competition, okay, in American music, and we're going to see how this competition actually resulted in better and more music. And if we're going to start talking about American music, we have to start talking about the existence of American slavery. And it was American slavery that really gave the new juice, or the new ideas, the new musical culture into American culture. I mean, if we look at the African American, they had technical virtuosity, they had improvisational skills, and they had this amazing structure of their music. So it's amazing how the imagination of the African American entered American music. And And that imagination was necessary because the African slave, everything was taken away from them, their culture, their language, their history, their traditions. Everything was taken away from them. So they had to create something new. They had to be improvisational. They had to create something new because everything that they had was taken away from them. And interestingly, that improvisation ended up in American music. In fact, it was this gentleman right here, Miles Mark Fisher, who did the first study of African American music, or specifically the spirituals that came out of African American music. And he said that this music is unique because it has unique rhythm from Africa, that it has stories that actually came to America from Europe and from Africa. It's got religious connotations to it, religious hymns. It has various melodies from the colonial era and melodies from Africa. And of course, the events of the African slave made up the stories and the songs of American music. So it really was Miles Mark Fisher who put us on the road to understanding the African American spiritual. And if we look at images from the past, we can sort of get an idea of the instruments of the African American. For example, down here you see the drum or the djembe that's being used. Okay? And the djembe is probably one of the most profound instruments that the African American or the African brought with him to America. And here's an image of an African American actually playing the drum between his legs. And the important thing about this djembe too is that the African actually treated the drum as if it was a spiritual item because it was made from a tree. So they would cut the tree down, but of course they would pray to the tree first. They would cut the tree down, and then they would have ceremonies around the tree, and then they would cut it in certain sections. They would hollow out. Then they would kill a goat or something for the skin, and then they would kill other animals and use it for the strings of the drum. So the djembe or the drum was very important to the African when they came here to America. And you could purchase djembes all over the United States. If you go to folk festivals, you can actually find them pretty inexpensive. And where did the djembe come from? Well, the Mali Empire, probably around the 13th century or so. The djembe became popular in Mali, and as some of you may know, African slaves came from the Ivory Coast and came from West Africa. So what did they bring with them? They brought with them the djembe. The second very important instrument that was brought here from Africa is the banjo. And if you notice, what is the banjo? But basically a djembe with a stick on the end. Okay? And so it's a djembe, it's the same thing, all right? But it has a stick on the end, and then it has strings, or they would use various animal guts to make the strings. But this is a modern version of a banjo, all right? And this is sort of what it would look like on the inside of the banjo. This is a modern version of the banjo, and the banjo was actually called the banjar at first, and we can read about it in Thomas Jefferson's Notes on Virginia. Jefferson noted this banjar and how the African slave played this instrument, made this instrument on the plantation, and then played it. And interestingly, there are many different images in America that have the banjo. You see the banjo up here, and of course, who's playing it? A white family. Right? Here's an African instrument brought into America, and it's become part of a white family. And of course, we just lost one of the greatest banjo players ever, not too long ago, Pete Seeger, one of the greatest banjo players ever. And he was a white American playing an African American instrument. So the banjo has been a very important part of American culture. In fact, even Kermit the Frog played the banjo for American youth. I don't know about you, but I grew up with this guy. So I knew about the banjo even before I knew about American slavery or American history or what have you. So slavery in America is very important to our music. And if you see, here's another image, and what do we have right here? But we have a banjo. And if you look really close, it's actually a djembe with a stick added and some strings. So we can see from many different images the banjo and the djembe. And here in this image right here, we see some sort of musical festival going on, and music was an important part of the African slave. This particular song is called Aki. This was brought from West Africa. If you notice, what's the main instrument here? The drum, the djembe, absolutely.
You shake it like Ben shake the mama, oh go like Ben roll the mama. You shake it like Ben shake the mama, oh go like Ben roll the mama.
And if you notice, this particular piece of music has a very strong rhythm to it. All right? And that's because it was used to work. This is actually a work chant. This is a Yoruba work chant from West Africa. And these melodies, these rhythms came over with the African from Africa to America, and they played these songs. And what would they be doing while these songs are being sung or being performed? A lot of times they'd be working. And the master loved it when the slave was singing because the master could actually know where the slave was. And the master had this image that if the slave was singing, he was happy. Well, we know the slave was never happy, but at least that's what the master thought, that if they were singing, they were happy. Here's another song. This is an American song. This is an African-American song called Knee Bone Bend.
Knee bone, didn't I call you? Hey, no, knee bone. Knee bone, didn't I call you? Hey, no, knee bone, didn't I call you? Hey, no.
Now, I want you to listen. Do you hear a drum in there?
Knee bone, didn't I call you? Hey, no, knee bone's like a
The drum is gone, isn't it? But they're still doing rhythm. How are they doing all their rhythm? With their legs, with their hands, exactly. So even though the drum, by the way, was banned by the white man, by the master, because, by the way, djembe actually means talking drum. Or talking something, okay? So they would use the drum to communicate. So the drum was banned in the South, but they would use rhythm anyway. And by the way, this song, what is it called? Knee Bone Bend. You might be thinking, oh, they're talking about the knees, right? It's the knee bone bend. It's the bend of the knees. No, not at all. They're not talking about the knee bone bend. What they're talking about is the bend in the river. The bend in the river is where you cross over and you're free. In other words, this is a first example of a double entendre where the slave is singing about one thing, but the master thinks that the slave is singing about something else. The master thinks he's singing about his knees. No, no, no. They're singing about their freedom, okay? They have no interest in their knees. They want to sing about their freedom. Now, even in the North, a lot of young people don't realize that the Northerners had slaves too, up until the Revolution, basically until 1830. Northerners had slaves, but the music that came out of the North was a lot different. The music that came out of the North from the African slave was very religious. And this particular number is called, "Oh Lord, I'm Waiting on You."
Lord, I'm waiting on you. Oh Lord, I'm waiting on you. Oh Lord, I'm waiting on you. Can't do nothing till the Spirit comes down here, Lord. Waiting on you. Down here, Lord. Waiting on you. Down here, Lord. Waiting on you. Can't do nothing till the Spirit comes.
Now, this song originated in the North, but it was also heard all the way down to Maryland. So I want you to think for something. Think for a second. Oh, Lord, I'm down here waiting on you. You think, oh, he's talking about God, right? That we're waiting on God to come and bring us to heaven. No, no. He's waiting for someone to come down south to free him. That's what he's talking about. That's what the slave is talking about. So these religious songs that were heard mostly in the North did spread a little bit to the South, and it's still a double entendre. Even though it has a religious connotation, there's actually more to it going on than you realize. In Virginia, this was a popular song, "Many Thousands Gone."
No more peck of corn for me. No more, no more. No more peck of corn for me. Many thousand gone.
And of course, what are they singing about? They're singing about the many thousands gone from Africa over to America. And they're also singing about the many thousands gone through death because of slavery. So here's a particular piece of music where it's almost outwardly protesting. They're really being very clear about what they're protesting. And if you hear, he said, "No more peck of salt for me, no more peck of corn for me." That's because that was their rations. And they didn't want to have a peck of corn or a peck of salt. They wanted more. So we could even say that this is our first protest song in American history, many thousands gone. Now in South Carolina, it was a lot different. In South Carolina, they had lots of rebellions. The Stono Rebellion, for example. And the Stono Rebellion was one of the reasons why the drum was banned, because African American slaves used the drum to communicate with other plantations that a rebellion was taking place. And in South Carolina, one of the most important things for the African slave was to escape. And here we have a song called "Follow the Drinking Gourd."
Follow the drinking gourd, follow the drinking gourd, for the old man say, follow the drinking gourd. When the sun come back, when the first quail call.
Now the master is listening to this song and he thinks, oh, this is no problem, because the drinking gourd was the water gourd. Okay? The slave girl would travel around the plantation, would walk around the plantation with a big bucket of water and a drinking gourd, and she would take out the drinking gourd and give it to the slaves. So they're singing about following the water gourd, right? No. No. They're talking about the Big Dipper. Right? Because it points to the North Star, it points to Polaris. So if you follow the drinking gourd, if you follow the North Star, you're home, you're free. So this is actually an escape song. And if you listen, they actually tell you when to leave, how to leave, and where to go.
Follow the drinking gourd. When the sun comes back, then the time is come. The drinking gourd. The river's bank hits a very good road. The dead tree shows the way.
They're telling you what river to cross. They're telling you to follow the dead trees. They're actually, even if you listen to the song continuously, they actually then tell you to meet up with the Underground Railroad. And then the Underground Railroad is going to bring you free to Ohio or to Canada or somewhere like that. So here is a song that it's literally a map of escape. And the master is so stupid, he thinks that they're singing about a drinking gourd. No, they're singing about how to escape. Now, down in Louisiana, it was even different. Down in Louisiana, we had this thing called Congo Square, and it was a place in Louisiana where everybody could join. It was actually, it's now become Louis Armstrong Park. Okay, and this Congo Square was a place where Africans were able to go and they were able to play their music for free, meaning no harassment. They could have their djembe, they could have their banjo, they could sing songs, they could tell stories. And there was all kinds of music that came out of Congo Square, such as this one called Mish Banjo.
Banjo comme on est insolent, chapeau sur le côté, monsieur Banjo, badine à la main, mouchoir dans son pêche, monsieur Banjo, cigare dans son gros la bouche. Oh, vous voyez ce mule-là.
Did you pick up the language there? It's obviously not English. There's actually, it's mostly French, but I believe there's even some Spanish words in there. And that's Louisiana, right? Because New Orleans was the most eclectic city in the country, because there were all types of people that were in Louisiana. So the African slave is picking up all these different sounds and languages, and they're incorporating it into their music. And Congo Square is going to become a little important later on. But Congo Square was amazing because of the diversity of music, and they have plaques and statues like this now all over Louisiana. Now there are these other songs that are also called spirituals, but they're really contraband songs. And they're contraband songs because the African slave enslaved was considered contraband when they escaped north during the Civil War, and they went to a general and they said, please take me. They became the contraband of the Union Army. And it was at that time during the Civil War that Northerners started hearing songs like this.
Swing low, sweet chariot,
I can hear you.
coming to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming to carry me home.
And of course, the white man had no idea what they were singing about. They thought that they were singing about the Bible, right? A religious story. No, they weren't singing about the Bible. The swinging low, the chariot swinging low, was the Underground Railroad or the army coming south to liberate the African slave. This was a double entendre. They're not singing about the Bible. No, they're singing about freedom and liberty. They're singing about the Underground Railroad. They're singing about being free. And by the way, this great singer is Paul Robeson.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot.
And here's another one for you. This is another contraband song that wasn't really heard until the African slave escaped up north and asked the Union Army for protection. This is probably my favorite African-American spiritual.
When Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Pharaoh, Pharaoh, let my people go.
Of course, the people that heard this song thought that they were singing about Moses, right? Thought that they were singing about Egypt and the Pharaoh and all that. Heck no! They were singing about down south. When they say come down, they're talking about going down into the south. Egypt isn't Egypt. Egypt is South Carolina. Moses isn't Moses. Moses is the Underground Railroad. So this is a double entendre song that's actually singing about the fact that they're desiring freedom, that they want Abraham Lincoln, they want Ulysses S. Grant, they want Harriet Tubman, they want the Underground Railroad to come down and free them. And I want you to think for a minute. If you go back in time, all the way back to Egypt and Moses, if you remember the story, right, the whole idea about the firstborn of Egypt dying, right? It was actually the Pharaoh that didn't the Pharaoh tell Moses that the firstborn of Israel would die? But what in fact happened? It was the firstborn of Egypt that died. I want you to think about the United States. We didn't let our slaves go. So what happened to us? The firstborn of every American home died. Think about it. 500,000 American men died on the battlefield because we didn't let the slaves go. This song was actually prophetic. It actually told us what was going to happen, that the Civil War was going to happen. Was Pharaoh's leadership destroyed by Moses? Yes. Was America almost torn apart by slavery? Yes. And this particular song actually gives us that idea of what's about to happen. It's truly amazing to me. The first time I heard this and really thought about it, I went, wow. I think a few swears came out of my mouth too, but it was like, wow, I can't believe this. But to continue on, okay, these spirituals, these slave spirituals, these contraband songs were hated by the African American after the Civil War. The African American citizen did not want to sing these songs because it made them remember the horrors of slavery. They had no interest in singing these songs. They wanted to sing European songs like opera and things of that nature. Okay? And there was actually a group of singers called the Fisk Jubilee Singers from Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee. And it was a black school with a white faculty, and they needed money. So they put together a singing ensemble, and they went around the country singing basically opera songs. Okay? Interestingly, this whole group was led by George White, a white guy. Just go figure, right? So he led this group around the country, and they're singing sort of European opera songs. And people are like, yawn. It seemed weird to them. Until one day, the Fisk Jubilee Singers were in the back, and they were getting their voices ready. They were getting their vocals ready. And one woman started to sing out. And someone else joined him. And then others joined in. This is behind the stage.
Steal away.
And it was at this point that the audience said, that's what I want to hear. I don't want to hear that European crap. I want to hear these African-American spirituals. I want to hear this real authentic music that came from the African-American. And by the way, Steal Away to Jesus, it's actually a song that the slaves sang when there's a meeting. You're stealing yourself away from the plantation, okay, in order to go to the meeting. So here's another double entendre song, but the white audience, this is what they wanted to hear, and so they started playing songs like this.
Deep river, my home is over Jordan.
Over Jordan? My home is over Jordan? Are they singing about the Jordan River? They're singing about the Ohio River. Exactly, okay? Here's another double entendre song where we have the African American singing a song that sounds like a spiritual, sounds like a religious song, but it's actually a song about crossing over the Ohio River to freedom. So the Fisk Jubilee Singers were responsible for spreading these African American spirituals throughout the United States, authentic African American spirituals. Now, we have to understand while this is going on, we have a lot of craziness. For example, this guy right here, okay, Samuel Cartwright. He actually came up with this theory that African Americans suffered from drapetomia. What is drapetomia or drapetomania? Running away. Running away is a disease? Do we have any veterans here? Didn't we learn as a veteran that if you get captured, the first thing you need to do is try to escape? Well, these are slaves. What are they going to do? They're trying to escape. He also came up with this theory that African Americans suffered from rascality. I don't know about you, but I teach a lot of young people. I think they're all rascals myself. But rascality to him was stupidness of mind. The African American wasn't stupid. In other words, he's creating these theories that rationalized slavery, that rationalized discrimination. So we have to understand that even after the Civil War, a lot of people believed that the African American was stupid. Now, where did they get that idea from? Well, it's important to note here that the white American got that idea from minstrelsy, or from minstrel performers, okay? Well, what was a minstrel show? The first minstrel show were African Americans performing for African Americans, okay? It included music, it included comedy skits, dancing, games, tricks, in essence, The Tonight Show. Right? In essence, a variety show. It's a variety show that they're putting on for their own kids. If you see here, it's African Americans, right, putting on a show for the kids. Okay? And that's really what it was. And of course, the show, the African Americans putting on the show would act stupid and would act oversexed, okay? And would act like they're trying to steal things, okay? In fact, the African American was making fun of their master. Okay? So the master actually sees this, or white people see these, and they're like, oh wow, this is great, this is great. Look how stupid they are. So the white American copied the African American, okay, literally copied what they were doing, and the African American is laughing their butt off because what the white man doesn't realize is he is making fun of himself. Because minstrelsy was black folks making fun of white folks. So now we have white folks that are doing it, and what are they doing? They're making fun of themselves. And I have a little piece of a minstrel performance. It's called Go Down Muley, and we'll listen to just a minute of it. Ladies and gentlemen.
Gentlemen, be seated. Tambo?
Yes, sir, Mr. Interlocutor.
I hears you's been seen driving a mule down the main street of this fair city.
That's right, Mr. Interlocutor. Sometimes I just gets plain lonesome for the sight of a Georgia mule. I remember once I tried to teach a Georgia mule to pull a plow. That old mule got so mad, he kicked me unconscious. When I come to, I didn't know if I was in Georgia or Alabama. I looked all around and I said, is this me or not me? Or is the devil got me? Was that a musket shot me? As I laid here more than a week, that old mule do kick amazing. And I expect he's now a grazing on the other side of the creek.
Can teach a buzzard to sing and a possum to chase a hound dog. You can maybe teach a rooster to lay an egg or a rabbit to kiss a groundhog. But let me tell you what I know about you.